Hey guys, this is Dan with Gears and Gadgets. Thanks for tuning in. Today I'm going to share with you guys all of the things that I screwed up when I did the lift on my 2021 Ford F-150. Today I need to actually do some wheel spacers because I have some rubbing issues. I ordered these off Amazon. They were pretty cheap, but I decided to go with this brand here, Coyote Accessories. Now this is a billet aluminum wheel spacer. Kind of bummed to see that it was made in China. I kind of thought stuff like this would still be made in the US, but guess not. This one is steel, but more importantly, the reason I decided to go with this wheel spacer is because it is a hub-centric spacer. Hopefully it works. Now the real bummer is I'm trying to do this the right way, and in doing so, I ordered some extended lug nuts because when you do the wheel spacers, you don't get as much grab on the stud, so these are designed to have a little more reach to go into the wheel to kind of get that back. Now, unfortunately, how this happened, I don't know. China things, they shorted me 4 lugs. This is supposed to be a 24 lug pack, and unfortunately, it's only a 20 lug pack. So I'm going to stick with just 1 lug on each wheel of the current lugs that I have until I can figure out what the deal with this is. Kind of a bummer.
This is a bummer, man. That's a bummer.
So let me show you guys why we are going this route. It is because I've been getting a rubbing, and honestly, I should have caught this. You can see on the inside of the wheel here, there's just a little bit of rubbing. It's from the tie rod. When the wheel is fully turned to the passenger, just barely making contact, to the point where I can't feel any indent there. I probably could file that down and be okay. Now it's going to be toasty. It's already 101 degrees out here, so it's a pretty toasty day in the garage here, but I want to get this done and out of the way because tomorrow I am going to start tearing into my motorcycle, doing a tire change, getting into that whole thing. I've been really putting that off because it's quite the project, but I want to tackle it again myself with the right tools and see if I can do it better this go around. Another video that's coming in the future. So let's get the truck up on the jack here and start tearing it apart and get these spacers installed so we can hopefully solve our rubbing problem. Let's get to it. You can see it was just barely making some contact here. Not ideal, but it didn't take off enough material to be worried about it. The tie rod is fine. Obviously the tie rod being steel. If this all works out the way it's supposed to, this should just slide right over top. This is why you go hub centric, so that this piece here slides over top of the hub and that keeps everything centered up. Literally zero play there. I'll probably order another wheel just because I don't totally love it. It was just enough to pop it out so that we're not dealing with that. Okay, so I have this stack of parts here that we'll go through to talk about what I ended up changing after doing the lift. Every time I would hit a bump, I would hear a thunk. And it just brought me back to some things that I had to question myself. Now, I think that actually none of this stuff was broken and that the alignment shop did a bad job on the first run and solved it the second run. The reason for it is because when I was hearing these clicks, I replaced all of these parts and components on the way to the tire shop. I noticed that clicking and ticking was still there, and I thought, man, I didn't fix the problem. Well, then when I picked the truck up, it went away and it's never come back again. So not that this was a waste of money, because ultimately I think that this needed to be done anyways. These are the factory drive shafts, CV shafts for the front end of the F-150. Well, they actually sell an upgraded CV shaft. This side actually made, this is the passenger side. I was filming a video, threw it into four-wheel drive, turned the wheel on some loose gravel, and I heard a pretty significant pop. I think these are probably not great for the truck as it is factory, and I think once I threw larger wheels, tires, a lift, all that it only made sense to go to the upgraded CV shafts. The one thing I did do wrong, so this is something that cost me money for not knowing what I was doing, was these integrated wheel ends. When I put the truck in four-wheel drive, it wasn't working. It was kind of grinding. And when I got to these integrated wheel ends, although I did the lift in a very responsible time frame, I guess you'd say, when it got to the high WEs, these things were just at that point where maybe I was cutting corners and not paying attention. With these, you really want to make sure that these teeth basically are lined up and engaging with the wheel hub, and that when you first go to engage four-wheel drive, that you're not getting this thing all tore up. So this is a good one. I replaced both because I wasn't sure if I had boogered them both up, so I just ordered them and replaced them just out of caution. This is what you want to see, is everything all together. This, when I pulled it apart, just literally fell apart in my hand because it got obliterated the first time I think it went into four-wheel drive. That was on me. Now, there's a whole bunch of information on how to do these IWEs online. These ones are electric on the 21s and newer. They used to be vacuum. I could not pull a vacuum on these to save my life. I don't think these actually do pull a vacuum because they're electric assist. So all that vacuum stuff didn't seem to apply when I redid these IWEs, just making sure that it was aligned and actually engaged when I installed it is fine. So everything works now. Both of them are doing good. I also boogered up the ball joints. I didn't pay attention to this little dot here, which is supposed to face the outside of the truck. So basically for probably, a week or so, I was riding around with the ball joint in the wrong orientation. In terms of ball joints, if there was even a remote shred of doubt that it was not installed correctly, I thought, for the sake of what it costs, not very expensive to replace these ball joints, that I would just do both of those as well. So for what it's worth, I was able to do that entire lift successfully myself in the garage with, I've got a fair amount of tools, so I'm not going to say basic tools. There's certainly a lot of things that you need to be able to do it, but it is very doable on your own, so long as you have enough time to do it and that the fitment is all correct. So if you have a 2021 Power Boost, I will link in the description down below the lift that I installed on this truck. Just know, if you have the Power Boost, the King shocks, in my opinion, they won't work. The way that the reservoir has to run through the shock tower does not, it doesn't fit. I couldn't get it to fit without major modification to the EV lines or the hybrid lines going to the battery pack. So I did wind up going with the Fox suspension. I love it. It's been running totally great. If there's a Fox suspension option for the suspension, if you have the Power Boost, highly recommend going for it. If you have a non-Power Boost, the King shocks that come with the kit should work out fine. So now that we've taken care of the spacers, look, I'm not really a big fan of wheel spacers. The giant lifted trucks with the crazy offsets, to me, that's just people making trucks to look cool at the expense of the functionality of the vehicle. It's not for me. So when it came time to have to do these spacers, when I realized that I had a rubbing problem on the tie rod, I looked for the thinnest wheel spacer I could possibly find. The thinnest that also was hub-centric, that looked like it wasn't going to cause me issues down the road, and that's why I went the route that I went. I didn't want to have to order new wheels. I could have done that, got a little more offset, and I think just going with the narrowest wheel spacer was the right move. If you start going with giant 1-inch or 2-inch spacers, you really start messing with the geometry of the suspension, and I think with a 1/2 inch, the way that I did it, that it's really not going to make a big difference at all, but it did give me that clearance that I needed to not rub the tie rods. Now, the reason why I had to go with the spacers in the first place is because this lift kit It says right in the manual. Actually, not only does this lift kit from Superlift say it, but so does BDS, that both of them were designed with 20-inch wheels in mind. Now I know why, is because the 18-inch wheel, when you decrease that interior diameter of that wheel, you're getting closer to things like tie rod ends. There's no issue with me rubbing with brakes or anything like that, but definitely an issue with tie rods. So that was just me running an 18-inch wheel with a lift that's designed for a 20, and that's why I needed to bump out with that spacer to just get it a little bit further away from those suspension components. Now, I've taken this truck on very long road trips since having this lift. It rides so awesome. It's just such a better suspension feel than the OEM, and I think the truck just looks cooler. So it's form and function, everything kind of come together. There certainly is an MPG hit. I'll link the video that I did sharing MPG up over here. You can take a look at that. But overall, I'm super happy that I did it. I was very scared to take on a lift myself, but it wasn't that big of a deal. It just took a little bit of time. So again, I want to thank realtruck.com for making all of this happen. Realtruck has been a phenomenal supporter of the channel. Huge fan of realtruck.com. If you guys check them in the link in the description down below, they've really made a lot of these things on the truck kind of come true. I spent a lot of money on this prior to a lot of the sponsored stuff, but Realtruck has kind of added some flair to this build that I was doing, including the rooftop tent, which will be in a video coming up in the very near future. Finally got a camping trip in with that. So I want to share with the rooftop tent that setup and kind of how that whole thing works. So thank you guys very much for tuning in. This whole lift process has been a process. I've learned a ton, and I hope that maybe I've encouraged somebody out there who has the skill set to maybe take on something like this themselves, because you learn a ton when doing stuff like this. It's not for the faint of heart or the people who are not willing to take on an adventure themselves, but if you are willing to do it, you can learn a ton, and it's a blast. So I recommend it for the right people. Now, with that being said, guys, thank you very much for tuning in. If this is your first time tuning in, please hit that subscribe button down below. Remember, likes go a long way to help support the channel. I will see you guys next time.